Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Steam curled softly above the warm bath water as the bubbles shimmered under the glow of the bathroom lights. Fingers slid lazily through the foam, tracing little patterns while the faint sound of running water filled the room. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, just a soak to unwind after a long day, until the door creaked open. He stepped in, still wearing that half-smile he always wore when he caught her off guard. The scent of his cologne mingled with the steam, making the room feel even smaller, warmer. His sleeves were rolled up, his gaze steady, not rushed, not rough, just deliberate. He leaned casually against the counter, arms crossed, watching her with that look that always made her forget the world outside that door. The bubbles clung to her shoulders as she shifted, pretending to stay unbothered, but her heart gave her away, beating faster, heavier, almost in sync with the soft dripping of water from the tap. "You're staring," she murmured, voice barely above the hush of steam. "Maybe I am," he said, stepping closer, his fingertips brushing a stray strand of hair away from her face. It wasn't what he said, it was the way his touch lingered, how his thumb traced the curve of her jaw, how his eyes lingered just a second too long, as if reading thoughts she hadn't dared to speak aloud. The tension thickened, unspoken, warm, teasing. It wasn't about the bath anymore, it was about the way the air shifted when he was near, the way their breaths mingled as he leaned just a little closer. Her fingers sank into the bubbles again, not to play, but to steady herself against the sudden rush of heat in her chest. Planning to just watch, she whispered, a challenge wrapped in softness. His hand found the edge of the tub, knuckles brushing her damp skin, close enough to feel the warmth rising between them, but not close enough to break that fragile, thrilling line they both hovered over. And then, just before the moment could unfold, he smirked, straightened, and said nothing. Only the sound of the water dripping filled the silence he left behind, and in that pause, the question lingered: was he going to leave her waiting, or was this just the beginning of something neither of them had planned? The sound of the dripping tap echoed in the silence he left behind, but her heart refused to settle. The water had begun to cool slightly, yet her skin still held the warmth of his nearness. She tilted her head back, watching him linger by the doorway, as though deciding whether to stay or retreat. His eyes betrayed him first, that fleeting softness hidden beneath his usual calm. She caught it, and it stirred something in her chest she didn't want to name too quickly. "You always do that," she said quietly, her voice carrying a mix of curiosity and challenge. "Do what?" he asked, turning slightly, his hand gripping the edge of the doorframe like it held his thoughts in place. "Start something, then stop. Like you want to say something, or do something, but you don't." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked back toward her, slow steps on the warm tiles, his gaze never leaving hers. The distance shrank again, and with it, the air thickened, not uncomfortable, but heavy with things unsaid. His fingers grazed her shoulder, tracing the trail where a bubble had slipped down. "Maybe I'm just waiting," he murmured. "For what?" she whispered, her breath catching as his thumb brushed against her collarbone. "For you to tell me what you really want." Her lips parted, but no words came. Not because she didn't know, but because saying it would unravel everything neat and ordinary about their evening. There was history in his touch, in the way his hand lingered near her neck but didn't pull her closer. There were nights when they laughed until morning, and others where silence built invisible walls between them. The steam seemed thicker now, or maybe it was the way their eyes locked, both daring the other to make the next move. Her fingers curled against the porcelain edge of the tub as if steadying herself for a truth she hadn't yet spoken. "I want," she began, but stopped. Her voice faltered under the weight of it. His hand dropped to his side, his jaw tightening ever so slightly, not in anger, but in the quiet ache of a man who felt her hesitation. The moment hung there, delicate and alive, until he leaned in, not to claim her lips, but to rest his forehead against hers. The warmth of his breath fanned across her skin, and just like that, something unspoken cracked open, not with words, but with a nearness that promised both comfort and danger in the same heartbeat. The water had lost some of its heat, but her skin still tingled where his fingers had grazed. Their foreheads rested together for a moment longer, breaths mingling in a silence that felt louder than any words they could have exchanged. She wanted to stay in that warmth, but a nagging thought pressed against her chest, the unspoken things that always lingered between them when nights like this crept in. "Why do you keep holding back?" she asked softly, her eyes flicking between his and the faint ripples on the water's surface. He let out a slow breath, his hand moving to the side of her neck, thumb brushing just below her jaw. "Maybe because I'm not sure where we're standing anymore," he said. Her heart clenched at that, not out of anger, but because she knew exactly what he meant. They had been caught somewhere between comfort and distance lately, moments of closeness slipping too easily into quiet gaps neither of them dared to name. "You think I don't feel that too?" she whispered. His hand lingered, tracing the fine line between tenderness and tension. "Then why does it feel like we both keep stopping halfway?" She had no answer, only the faint tremor in her fingers as they rose from the bubbles, water dripping down her wrist as she touched his wrist lightly, a gesture that was both a plea and a challenge. The air thickened again. He leaned a little closer, his breath now warm against her temple. "You used to pull me in without saying a word," he murmured. "Now I don't know if I should lean in or step back." Her lips parted as if to speak, but the words tangled somewhere behind her ribs. The truth was complicated, the long hours, the distractions, the quiet resentments that built up between mornings and nights. But none of that erased the way her body leaned toward his now, instinctively, as though it remembered what her mind kept questioning. A droplet of water slid down her shoulder, catching the dim light, and he followed it with his eyes, not in hunger, but in a kind of longing that felt raw and real. His fingertips moved again, brushing the edge of the towel beside the tub, then hesitating, as though touching her again might unlock a door neither of them was ready to walk through. "I'm still here," she said quietly, almost a whisper lost in the steam. He closed his eyes briefly, jaw tense. "Then show me," he said. It wasn't a command, it was an ache, a challenge, a confession wrapped into 4 words. And just like that, the silence felt electric again, the kind that makes every breath louder, every inch between them feel too far. Outside, the faint hum of the house carried on, but in that small, warm space, something was shifting, rising, not quite breaking open, but no longer staying still. The room felt smaller now, the air denser, as though every breath they took pulled them closer. The faint ripples in the tub mirrored the trembling in her chest as his hand lingered near her collarbone, neither pulling away nor claiming more. The space between them was a breath, a thought, a single choice waiting to be made. Her fingers trailed along his wrist again, slower this time, tracing the veins beneath his skin. The warmth of his pulse against her damp fingertips made her stomach flutter, and when her eyes met his, she saw it, that flicker of restraint clashing with desire. "You keep waiting," she whispered, her voice thick with something she didn't dare name. "Because if I stop," he murmured, leaning in until his breath fanned against her cheek, "I'm not sure I'll be able to again." The words hung there, heavy, electric. His thumb brushed the hollow of her throat, a touch so light it sent a shiver through her. Her shoulders rose slightly from the water, drawn unconsciously toward him, bubbles sliding off her skin like a trail marking every inch of rising heat between them. Her breath hitched. "And if I don't want you to stop?" His jaw flexed, a small sound escaping him, part sigh, part surrender. Their foreheads nearly touched now, the steam wrapping around them like a veil. She could feel the warmth of his chest just an inch away, the subtle shift of his breathing as he fought to hold his ground. His hand slid down her arm, fingers brushing the inside of her wrist, tracing slow, deliberate lines that made her skin hum. The tub felt too still, the house too quiet, the whole world shrinking to this fragile, burning moment. Her lips parted again, but no words came this time, only a soft inhale, an invitation unspoken. He stayed there, caught between patience and something deeper, his gaze flicking to her mouth, then back to her eyes, as though asking without asking. The silence roared louder than any touch, until it wasn't silence anymore. It was a promise, unsealed, trembling on the edge of breaking. The stillness between them felt like a held breath, every second stretching into something heavier than silence. His hand lingered on her wrist, his thumb tracing circles that should have calmed her but instead stirred something deeper, something restless. Then, almost too quietly to catch, he said, "You weren't here last night." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" His eyes searched hers, a faint shadow crossing his features. "I waited. You said you'd come to bed. But you stayed out there, didn't you? On the phone." The warmth between them thinned, replaced by a ripple of unease that prickled her skin even more than his touch. "It was nothing," she said softly, instinctively leaning back just a fraction, not away, but enough for him to notice. "Nothing doesn't keep you up past midnight," he murmured, his voice tight with something unspoken. Her heart beat faster, not with guilt but with the sudden weight of being seen too closely. The phone call had been innocent, a late chat with an old friend about work, yet the way he looked at her now, it felt like her silence had written a story all its own. She reached up, fingers brushing the side of his face. "You think I'm pulling away?" He didn't answer right away, just let out a breath that felt heavier than the steam around them. "I think I don't know how to read you anymore," he said finally. The words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. Lately, everything felt like a pause before something bigger, something unnamed. Her thumb stroked his cheek, softening his jaw as her voice dropped to a whisper. "Then start here," she said. "Read this." The tension shifted, not gone, but bent, tangled with the heat that never truly left. He leaned in, his forehead pressing to hers once again, this time with a quiet urgency, as if trying to memorize her breath. His fingers slid along her neck, down to her shoulder, pausing where water dripped from her collarbone. "I want to believe you," he said, voice low, almost breaking. "Then do," she whispered. The moment burned with contradiction, doubt and desire threading together so tightly they almost felt like the same thing. The past night hung between them, unexplained, but the present pulled harder, in the way his grip tightened ever so slightly, in the way her eyes didn't flinch from his, in the silent plea of two people who wanted to feel close even when questions lingered. The water lapped gently against her skin as she shifted, closing the inch between them, their breaths mixing in a fragile truce that could break with a single word, or deepen with one more step neither was sure they were ready to take. The silence between them stretched, heavy but no longer cold. His hand still rested near her collarbone, her fingers still on his cheek, two pieces waiting to either pull apart or finally fall into place. The doubt from a moment ago lingered like a shadow, but beneath it, something warmer pressed forward, the need to feel that missing closeness. "I didn't stay away because I wanted distance," she said at last, her voice low but steady. "I stayed because I was planning something, for us." His brows drew together, the tension in his jaw loosening slightly. "Planning?" She nodded, a small, almost shy smile tugging at her lips. "I've been trying to find the right moment to tell you. The call wasn't what you think. It was about that weekend trip, the one we kept putting off. I wanted it to be a surprise." For a second, his gaze softened so quickly it was almost disarming. The doubt cracked, replaced by something closer to regret and relief. "So, all this time," she echoed, her fingers tracing his jaw as if to smooth away the words he'd held back earlier. His thumb brushed her chin, this time with no hesitation. "I thought I was losing you," he murmured. Her breath hitched as their eyes locked, the truth laid bare between them. "You never were," she whispered. That was the moment the tension finally gave way, not with a rush, but with a slow, certain pull that left no space between them. He leaned in, his forehead against hers turning into something deeper, a kiss that started soft, almost tentative, then deepened as her hands rose to his shoulders. The steam wrapped around them, carrying away the last remnants of doubt. Every brush of skin against skin felt like a promise reclaimed, warm, steady, real. His fingers threaded through her damp hair, hers clung to the side of his neck, anchoring him there as though the world outside the bathroom no longer mattered. The bubbles shifted with her movement as she rose slightly, the water lapping at the edges of the tub, a quiet reminder of how fragile the moment had been just minutes ago, now turned into something undeniable. He broke the kiss only to whisper against her lips, "Next time, just tell me." She smiled, not with apology, but with relief. "Next time, don't doubt me so easily." The steam had started to fade, the bubbles sinking slowly as if the water itself was exhaling after holding so much tension. Their foreheads remained close, breaths mingling as the earlier storm of doubt and longing melted into something softer, something steady. His hand still rested against her jaw and shoulder, thumbs moving gently as though memorizing the peace that had finally settled between them. She let out a quiet laugh, barely above a whisper, her fingers brushing the damp strands at the back of his neck. "Feels like we forgot how to just breathe together," she said. His lips curved, a shadow of a smile breaking the heaviness. "Maybe we just needed a reminder." The air carried a different weight now, not tense, but full, like the warmth that lingers after rain. She leaned in again, this time not out of hesitation or need, but choice, a kiss slow and certain, carrying the unspoken promise that the distance they had been circling wasn't stronger than what held them together. His arms slid around her, careful with the water still clinging to her skin, drawing her a little closer without urgency. There was no rush anymore, just the quiet certainty that closeness didn't have to be dramatic to be real. "About that trip," he murmured, his lips brushing her temple. She tilted her head back enough to meet his eyes. "Still want to go?" "I want to go anywhere," he said, his thumb tracing her cheek, "as long as it's with you." The words made her chest tighten in the best way, the kind of ache that comes from knowing the hard parts hadn't broken them, only taught them how to reach each other again. They stayed like that for a while, wrapped in the soft quiet of the bathroom, the faint sound of water lapping against porcelain. Her fingers traced the outline of his smile, the one she hadn't seen in weeks, the real one, the one that felt like home. When he finally stood, offering her a towel with a playful little bow, she laughed, not just because of the gesture, but because the air between them felt light again, easy. She let him wrap her in it, the heat of the bath replaced by the warmth of his arms as he pulled her against his chest. "No more pauses," he said quietly, a vow that felt simple yet everything. "No more," she agreed, resting her head against him as they stepped out together, leaving the steam and the questions behind.